Hello, as the 2010s drew to a close, we asked you to scan through an impressive list of games and choose 3 that stood out as the best of the past 10 years. Now, the votes are in, the winners are known, and it's time to share your pick for Game of the Decade. But why stop with just the top choice? We've also gathered the top 20 entries, which combine to form one hell of a list. Number 20. Resident Evil 2 was an ambitious sequel back in 1998, packing 2 PlayStation discs, one for Leon S. Kennedy and another for Claire Redfield. After players finished the game with one character, they could play through the horrific events from the other's perspective. The remake preserves this ingenious formula, offering brave players 4 distinct playthroughs. Replaying RE2 is where the game and series truly sings, enabling players who once felt like they were barely scraping by to become zombie-dodging masters. Memorizing the RPD layout, expertly navigating the labyrinthine sewers, and unlocking bonus weapons, unlimited ammo, for subsequent playthroughs is part of the full RE2 experience. Resident Evil 2. Over 20 years after the celebrated original, the Resident Evil 2 remake earns PlayStation's Editor's Choice as a defining horror experience. This remake shows that the Capcom team, who invented the genre in 1996, still deserves the mantle of masters of survival horror. RE2 as manages to be consistently nerve-wracking, smooth, and entertaining. The fun's not over, either. The recent announcement of the Resident Evil 3 remake has me thrilled to survive Raccoon City once again.
And tell me everything. Right from the start.
It's Umbrella's fault, this whole mess.
Number 19. Batman: Arkham City, 2011, courtesy Rocksteady Studios, retaining the combat flow and emphasis on gadgets that made Batman: Arkham Asylum such a success 2 years earlier. Rocksteady's Arkham City creates a larger canvas for players to truly feel like the Dark Knight and explore Gotham City from its rooftops to alleyways. Co-written by Paul Dini, celebrated comic writer and producer on Batman, the animated series, Arkham City has an original sprawling story that employs the majority of Batman's rogues gallery in the main narrative and engaging side missions. Plus, the familiar voice talents of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as Batman and the Joker, and designs that blend comic book costumes with the more grounded look of Christopher Nolan's films, serve to create a game that feels like a union of everything that fans loved about Batman and his world at the top of the decade.
Gate open. Time to bring in the car.
Number 18. Fortnite, 2017, courtesy of Epic Games. Few games have made such an impact in a short time as Fortnite Battle Royale did when it launched in 2017. The addition of the free-to-play multiplayer mode turned Fortnite from a nearly forgotten IP into a household name, synonymous with video games and the culture itself. Such is the mainstream reach of the title that instead of uninformed parents saying their kids are playing Nintendo, they're now saying, playing Fortnite. With the release of Chapter 2 this year, it looks like Fortnite is here to stay, and considering how insanely popular the game has become, that longevity is well earned. Number 17. Mass Effect 2, 2010. The Mass Effect series peaked with its second entry in 2010, before going off the rails in the trilogy's finale 2 years later, which was quite possibly the most divisive title of the decade. While the first game did an admirable job of world building and introducing players to a swath of characters they'd inevitably want to get to know much more intimately, it wasn't until the sequel that they began to feel like fully realized individuals with hopes, dreams and feelings. The game's seemingly endless array of dialogue options and permutations for how one simple conversation could affect the narrative was influential in several ways. It's a system that hasn't quite been perfected since, even in the game's lukewarm follow-up Mass Effect Andromeda. It also featured a variety of endings that fit the type of shepherd you groomed perfectly. All the puzzle pieces fit together to help make it one of BioWare's best, a feat it hasn't yet been able to match, and likely never will again. This was the last great moment in Mass Effect history, because while the third game showed flickers of excellence, it was Mass Effect 2 that took the franchise and made it feel more like an experience than a relatively new game series. Number 16. Red Dead Redemption is a Western action-adventure game developed by Rockstar San Diego and published by Rockstar Games. A spiritual successor to 2004's Red Dead Revolver, it is the second game in the Red Dead series, and was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in May 2010. Red Dead Redemption is set during the decline of the American frontier in the year 1911 and follows John Marston, a former outlaw whose wife and son are taken hostage by the government in ransom for his services as a hired gun. Having no other choice, Marston sets out to bring 3 members of his former gang to justice. The game is played from a third-person perspective in an open world, allowing the player to interact with the game world at their leisure. The player can travel the virtual world, a fictionalized version of the western United States and Mexico, primarily by horseback and on foot. Gunfights emphasize a gunslinger gameplay mechanic called Dead Eye that allows players to mark multiple shooting targets on enemies in slow motion. An online multiplayer mode is included with the game, allowing up to 16 players to engage in both cooperative and competitive gameplay in a recreation of the single-player setting. Red Dead Redemption was developed over the course of 5 years and is one of the most expensive video games ever made. The game received critical acclaim for its visuals, dynamically generated music, voice acting, gameplay, and story, and shipped over 15 million copies by 2017. It won several year-end accolades, including Game of the Year awards from several gaming publications, and is considered by critics as one of the greatest video games ever made. A prequel, Red Dead Redemption 2, was released in October 2018 to similar acclaim. Number 15. Death Stranding, 2019, Hideo Kojima's latest masterpiece is a haunting journey that lingers with you long after the credits have rolled. Everything, including the loneliness that permeates every inch of your journey through the barren wasteland of what was once America, is like a tiny needle tattooing your soul with a melancholy reminder that humanity is meant to come together, not to be scattered and left alone. From the heartrending soundtrack, primarily from indie band Low Roar, to magnificent performances from stars Norman Reedus, Mads Mikkelsen and Tommy Earl Jenkins, Death Stranding oozes finesse from practically every pore. The game is marked by cinematic excellence and successfully takes players outside of the box that so many developers insist on remaining in, and for that alone, it could be praised. Luckily, Death Stranding is so much more. This is the complete package and an absolute must-play. Number 14. Nier, Automata, 2017, is an action role-playing hack-and-slash video game developed by Platinum Games and published by Square Enix. The game was released for the PlayStation 4 and Microsoft Windows in early 2017, with an Xbox One port later in June 2018. Nier, Automata is a sequel to the 2010 video game Nier, a spin-off sequel of the Drakengard series. Set in the midst of a proxy war between machines created by otherworldly invaders and the remnants of humanity, the story follows the battles of a combat android, her companion, and a fugitive prototype. Gameplay combines role-playing elements with action-based combat and mixed-genre gameplay similar to that of Nier. Production began in 2014, with series creator Yoko Taro, producer Yosuke Saito, and lead composer Keiichi Okabe returning to their respective roles, as well as Square Enix artist Akihiko Yoshida in charge of character design. The story is based around themes similar to Yoko's earlier works, such as people's impulse to kill and nihilism, while also incorporating issues such as confronting prejudice and escaping difficult situations. The goal was to make a Nier game true to the spirit of the original, while simultaneously crafting a better combat system. Number 13. Call of Duty: Black Ops 2, 2012, is a first-person shooter developed by Treyarch and published by Activision. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360 on November 12, 2012, and for the Wii U on November 18 in North America and November 30 in PAL regions. Black Ops 2 is the ninth game in the Call of Duty franchise of video games, a sequel to the 2010 game Call of Duty: Black Ops and the first Call of Duty game for the Wii U. The game's campaign follows up the story of Black Ops and is set in two different time periods, the late 1980s and 2025. In the 80s, the player switches control between Alex Mason and Frank Woods, two of the protagonists from Black Ops, while in 2025, the player assumes control of Mason's son, David. Both time periods involve the characters pursuing Raúl Menendez, a Nicaraguan cartel leader, who is responsible for kidnapping Woods in the 80s and later sparking a second Cold War in 2025. The campaign features non-linear gameplay and has multiple endings. Development for the game began soon after the release of Black Ops, with Activision promising that the follow-up would bring meaningful innovation to the Call of Duty franchise. Black Ops 2 is the first game in the series to feature futuristic warfare technology and the first to present branching storylines driven by player choice as well as selecting weapons before starting story mode missions. It also offers a 3D display option. Black Ops 2 received generally positive reviews from critics, with praise for its gameplay, story, multiplayer, and zombies mode, but was criticized for its Strike Force missions. The game was a commercial success. Within 24 hours of going on sale, the game grossed over $500 million.
This product not yet rated.
Number 12. Demon's Souls did it first, but it was Dark Souls, in 2011, which brought the concept to the masses. Death and difficulty have always been two sources of video game frustration for as long as time remembers, although it wasn't until 2011 when Japanese developer From Software would truly burst onto the scene and give the concepts a whole new meaning. Accepting failure became a chance to learn, difficulty was something to conquer and boast about in the aftermath. It's a set of mechanics which has helped to craft an incredibly successful franchise and a handful of even better spin-offs, as well as a myriad of copycats. The likes of Lords of the Fallen, The Surge, Neo, Salt and Sanctuary, and Ashen all owe their entire existence to Dark Souls, while other titles such as the recent Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order come packaged with their own spin on things. Terms such as bonfires and the Estus Flask have become common lingo, grandiose boss fights upped their scale exponentially, and the labyrinthine-like nature of locations grew to justify the lack of an in-game map. It was Dark Souls that laid those foundations for time to come. Boss fights are some of Dark Souls' most memorable moments, however, and it's the game's approach to those daring battles which changed important clashes for a decade. You can never go too long in a video game before a gigantic health bar suddenly presents itself on-screen coupled with a devilish title for the beast you're about to test your might against. Along with unique mechanics to change the tide of battle, every towering foe demanded a different approach as attack patterns changed, phases would dramatically switch up the antagonist's form, and targeting specific body parts could even yield unique weapons. It's a model that continues to be replicated to this day, heightening the extravagance of a boss fight in the process. Number 11. Persona 5, a JRPG released in 2016 for the PS3 and PS4, and the Phantom Thieves stole my heart. So much separates this game from the mass of JRPGs on the market. A central feature of gameplay is the infiltration of palaces and dungeons, each reflecting the distorted worldview of a different, warped individual. Each one differs vastly from the next, changing enemies, layouts, themes, and visual design. Combat within these is turn-based, forcing players to rely on exposing and exploiting their opponents' weaknesses. When you aren't deep diving through the corruption of society, you are instead living the everyday life of a high school student in Tokyo. Persona 5 has a beautiful way of making the ordinary and mundane tasks charming and enjoyable. Every day, Joker, the main character of Persona 5, can engage in a vast number of activities that affect his social stats in different ways, and can also choose to spend time with confidants, characters who represent each card in a tarot deck, unlocking new abilities and social events. These all take place within deadlines, meaning there is only so much ground that you can cover, so certain events must be prioritized. As the game has such a focus on progression, there is great significance in the storytelling aspect of the game. Prepare yourself for a narrative that focuses on questions of morality and justice within society, exploring corruption across a colorful palette of sins. The Phantom Thieves, yearning for justice against the twisted reality of the world they live in, exist to change the society that has caused them to suffer. Each confidant leaves their own mark on the game, with subplots becoming available as you build up relationships. The Phantom Thieves play a crucial role within the narrative of Persona 5 and consist of vibrant and interesting characters who truly shine when they interact together. Number 10. Marvel's Spider-Man A is a 2018 action-adventure game developed by Insomniac Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Based on the Marvel Comics superhero Spider-Man, it is inspired by the long-running comic book mythology and adaptations in other media. In the main storyline, the superhuman crime lord Mr. Negative orchestrates a plot to seize control of New York City's criminal underworld. When Mr. Negative threatens to release a deadly virus, Spider-Man must confront him and protect the city while dealing with the personal problems of his civilian persona, Peter Parker. Gameplay is presented from the third-person perspective with a primary focus on Spider-Man's traversal and combat abilities. Spider-Man can freely move around New York City, interacting with characters, undertaking missions, and unlocking new gadgets and suits by progressing through the main story or completing tasks. Outside the story, the player is able to complete side missions to unlock additional content and collectible items. Combat focuses on chaining attacks together and using the environment and webs to incapacitate numerous foes while avoiding damage. Number 9.
So, what do you think?
Uncharted 4: A Thief's End gave us just that, an ending. And what an ending it was. Nathan Drake bowed out in the style you'd expect, a trail of death and destruction behind him, a wry smile on his lips and remarkably coiffed hair. What Naughty Dog also managed, however, was to imbue the finale with a real sense of warmth and compassion, something arguably missing from the series' earlier, more gung-ho installments, leaving the player with a sense of nostalgia and, yes, loss, at seeing one of gaming's most enjoyably straightforward heroes leave the stage. The game delivered exactly what fans expected: huge set pieces, enjoyably hectic gunplay, stunning visuals, as well as so much more. A series that set a benchmark for big-budget action gaming delivered where it mattered most, and left on a high.
Let's go do it. One last time.
Number 8. Was Bloodborne, the PlayStation 4's first essential exclusive? While Sony's flagship boasted some stellar titles way back in 2015, it's hard to make the case against From Software's beautifully bleak adventure. Perhaps more than any other game on this list, Bloodborne's fandom goes beyond simple enthusiasm for the game, instead, seeming to succumb to its deep, dark charms with an almost cultish fervor. And honestly, it's easy to see why. Bloodborne is both excruciatingly uncompromising and joyously rewarding, almost breaking a player's resolve after each punishing excursion and likely death through its monstrously gloomy world, with boss battles designed to leave you in awe for the few seconds it takes for you to fall to a lethal blow. But, once you do master its tough but fair combat and learn to navigate the blood-soaked hellscape, the euphoria you feel once you do make real progress is unlike almost any other experienced in video games. Couple this with its stunningly realized world, the crumbling period setting perfect for its classic literary horror illusions, and you've got a staggering achievement, still capable of luring players in for another nightmarish go-around. Number 7. Despite the fanfare which greeted the glimpses of Horizon Zero Dawn's stunning world, giant robo-dinosaurs and astonishingly realized characters, we admit to being unsure of how the game would measure up once the long-awaited launch finally arrived. After all, while the Killzone series was solid, Guerrilla Games hadn't really hinted that they had a potential classic in their arsenal, especially one as gorgeous, inspiring and epic as Horizon Zero Dawn. Offering an incredible journey of adventure with a protagonist so well-written she'd be the envy of most movie screenplays, an open world for you to explore with immersive, challenging combat and story with enough emotional resonance to test the resolve of even the most stoic of gamers, Horizon Zero Dawn was both a stunning surprise, and no surprise at all. Aloy's journey always looked to be astounding, and when we finally got our hands on HZD, we were happy to be proven wrong. Number 6. While the fifth installment of any game franchise can feel daunting to newcomers, Bethesda's Skyrim felt just the opposite in its approach. The high fantasy game created a rich tapestry of lore and history that was easy to become acquainted with and invested in. While the character models of the NPCs may have left something to be desired, the detail in the expansive settings, locations, armor and weapons displayed the kind of ambitious detail that swallowed other games of its ilk whole. The open-world nature of the story and seemingly infinite side quests often eclipsed the main narrative, and yet that factor worked to the game's advantage. Skyrim truly did invite players to create their own narrative for their characters, and make in-game choices, both in terms of characters and quests, that added to the replay value of an eternal game that never plays the same way twice.
There's one they fear. In their tongue, he's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
Number 5. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of those special, unique games with sky-high expectations that not only meets them, but surpasses them, a rarity among video games in this day and age. Fans of the series were clamoring so much for developer Rockstar Games' return to the Wild West that each time the release date was pushed back, it literally ruined their day. From the storytelling to the open world to the colorful characters to the guns, RDR2 is easily one of the best third-person adventure games ever made. It allows the player to live through the last remnant of the Old West at their leisure.
Listen to me. When the time comes, you gotta run and don't look back. This is over.
Number 4. While its predecessor was set in a fictional reimagining of New York City, Rockstar Games' Grand Theft Auto V transports players to a satirical version of Southern California and lets them roam the sprawling spread of Los Santos on foot or, more likely, in any vehicle they manage to swipe. Long a marquee franchise in gaming, Grand Theft Auto V broke through in a way no other title had, which is saying something. Since its release, the game has become the highest-grossing media title of all time, generating more than $6 billion in lifetime revenue. The staggering financial figure is a testament to the game's resonance with fans. Its open-world environment allows for a highly immersive experience, whether completing a high-stakes heist mission in the main campaign, trying to lose the cops in the Hollywood Hills or grabbing some sustenance in the kitchen as you pretend to lead a normal domestic life for a moment. Number 3. There will be plenty of debates about which game is the single best from the decade. Comment sections and message boards will rage with arguments for a variety of games, each with valid arguments. However, unless those arguments are talking about The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt, they're going to fall short. This game has everything a video game fan could want: high action, exceptional writing, a fantastic story, wonderful voice acting, hundreds of hours of content, and the list goes on. When we look back on this decade a few years into the 2020s, there's no doubt that Wild Hunt will still be as revered then as it is now. Number 2. A fourth entry that surpasses the previous installments in its series, God of War, feels like a legacy sequel as players return to Kratos a little older and a little wiser than the cantankerous Greek demigod depicted in the previous 3 games. Santa Monica Studios strips away the excess and exploitation that God of War was known for in order to tell an epic father and son story that tugs at the heartstrings while simultaneously encouraging you to rip the heart out of your enemies' chests. The new mythology at its center, Norse instead of Greek, sets up a fascinating new narrative that ends with a major ramification that makes the sequel one of the most anticipated games to come. And, from a design standpoint, every character model and setting is a work of art, set to Bear McCreary's lush
I
score.
think I'm weak because I'm not like you.
You do not know everything, boy.
No. But at least I know the truth now.
The truth.
Hang on, boy!
Okay!
The truth.
Long way from home, aren't you? And here I thought your kind was supposed to be so enlightened, so much better than us.
The gods of these realms don't take kindly to outsiders, trust me. When they find you, and they will, they'll make things difficult.
Wait here. I will handle this.
Wow, that was something, that fight.
On our journey, we will be attacked by all manner of creature. To be effective in combat, a warrior must not feel for his enemy. Close your heart to their desperation. Close your heart to their suffering. The road ahead is long and unforgiving. No place for a boy. You must be a warrior.
But not everyone is bad. Mother always said to be open to those who can help.
Who you were before doesn't matter. This boy is not your past, he is your son. And he needs his father.
What is this?
It's the world serpent!
Stay calm, boy!
I am!
What is it saying?
He wants to help us!
When we started the poll, we had a feeling we'd see Joel and Ellie near the top.
We
Turns out the characters, drama, and grisly action in The Last of Us left such an unforgettable impression on players that it received over 11% of all votes to become the Game of the Decade Platinum winner. What is there to say about The Last of Us that hasn't already been said? From the opening moments, Naughty Dog's masterpiece breaks your heart, and then proceeds to build it back up over the course of the game by running the full gamut of emotions you could experience playing a video game, only to break it all over again in the end. Part of the game's initial success was that it came during the height of zombie media, but long after that hype has died down, The Last of Us still has so much more to offer. It's a game that rewards smart gameplay, resourcefulness, yet still puts you in predicaments where you never feel quite prepared for what you're about to face.